Awesome. Welcome everyone to today's Library Design Workshop preview with Emily Puckett-Rogers. Emily is the course advisor for this workshop offered by the Library Journal. I'm Caitlin McKinney, a contributor for EdMaker. EdMaker is an online learning consultancy that has partnered with Library Journal to bring you Library Design Workshop and other great online courses for librarians. We're delighted to be here today to talk about Library Design Workshop and what to expect in the online classroom. Emily, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background and your interest in library design?
Great. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. I'm the Space Design and Assessment Librarian here at the University of Michigan Library. So I'm deeply involved in these kinds of activities in my day-to-day work. And previous to this position, I had been involved for a couple of years with Library Journal as the coordinator for the new Landmark Library series. So that takes a broad look at new and extensive renovations from public libraries and academic libraries across the country and in Canada to find and then share back with our community some of those exemplary library designs so that you can use those in your own projects, consider visiting them. We wrapped up the 2015 public library competition exhibited at PLA a couple of months ago, and we're just wrapping up the academic version now, and so that will come out in September, and there's some beautiful libraries that are represented in that. Which is something I really enjoy being a part of. So as Caitlin mentioned, my role in this course is to be a course advisor and the facilitator for the online sessions. And this is the second time I've worked with this course. So I have been working diligently with the Library Journal team and the EdMaker team to design the assignments for you, to find resources for you, and to help shape this in ways that will kind of demystify this process and tease apart some of the complexity for it, help you customize this work to your own experiences. And then I will be here with you during the weeks of the sessions where I'll be talking with and introducing our keynote speakers and our speakers for each topic. And I'll be facilitating the question and answer session. So this is something that's really fun. What I like about this especially is that it's a friendly environment, it's a more informal environment, so we welcome you to contribute, communicate, participate in this in a lot of different ways, and that's something that helps build community around all of this work that we're all engaged in. So I'm happy to join you today and looking forward to working with you in the future.
Great. Thanks, Emily. Okay. So the Library Design Workshop is an online course over 4 weeks, and you'll join live sessions every week to hear speakers in a space just like this that you're in right now. You'll learn from industry leaders, learn about new tools to use, and come up with a framework for your library design project. Emily, could you tell our viewers what participants can expect to get out of the Library Design Workshop and how it's different from a standard web series course?
Mm-hmm. Well, one part of that is the participation that I mentioned before, that it's a collegial environment, and participants are really encouraged to engage with each other and engage with the speakers. So you get an opportunity to ask your questions to those speakers. You get an opportunity to share your own experiences with your colleagues, both in the chat and in the platform that we use to support the work that you're doing. And we've really designed the assignments in such a way that you can customize them to your own project. So we don't expect you to do them lockstep just because you need to get something tangible out of this that is for our purposes or for bigger picture. We really, really want this to be a useful product for you. So we've designed these assignments to be kind of roadmaps for you. That you will be creating during this process that you can then use for wherever you are in the library design process, whether that is in renovating internal spaces into maker spaces or active learning spaces or whatever that looks like, or it's launching into a renovation or it's considering a new build. So it's an amazing opportunity to connect with people all across the country who are engaged in addressing the similar challenges or who have similar questions to you in their own projects. And we also have worked with finding facilitators for each of the sessions or for each of the groups that you'll be in your platform in the course structure. And those people also have experience in this, and so they can lend their own perspective, they can give you advice. And it's a really positive and active learning community that you're involved in.
Great. Okay, great. So you mentioned homework, and it's one of the unique things about this class because you can implement the homework into your real-life library setting. Could you tell us more about the coaching and the one-on-one feedback?
Mm-hmm. So what you see here is a screenshot of the platform, the chat feature in the platform that allows you to have a threaded conversation with essentially your group that will put you in depending on the size of the course. So regardless of how big the course is overall and how many people participate, we then customize your pod to an actionable and smaller cohort. So you are both connected with them to interact with them as they present their assignments, as they submit their assignments through this thread, and you also get to connect with the entire range of people who are participating in the course itself. So you get both one-on-one support and help with your facilitator who gives you specific feedback on your assignments, and then you also get to share those experiences, questions, or resources with your smaller group cohort that's attached to that one facilitator. And so what we encourage you to do is use this as a space of dialogue. So we encourage you not just to link your assignments to this discussion, but actually copy and paste it so that other people can see it and other people can give you feedback and engagement, because you're already getting your feedback and your advice and working with your facilitator to shape your own individualized roadmap for your library project. But by doing this, you also get a chance to engage with your colleagues and your peers, and you get to see what they're working on as well. And so that what we've tried to do is pair this deeper opportunity to engage with colleagues in the homework structure with these points of inspiration that are the speakers during the sessions.
Great. Okay. And can you tell us more about this slide?
Sure. So this is an example of one of the weekly assignments. So what we've done is design the assignments to kind of go from very big to more structured, where we ask you to think about facets of the library design process. So again, that I mentioned at the beginning, we're trying to demystify that process and give you very specific tools, inspiration, and feedback and resources that you can use and customize, again, to your library project. So we focus on 4 major themes throughout this course, whether to consider renovations, whether to consider new buildings, what are the facets behind investing in a new building or a renovation, whether to engage in working with your community to get fundraising for your work. So how do you build out that relationship? What do you think in terms of communication to your community? What do you think in terms of how to build out donor opportunities? We also focus on space planning, so imagining flexible spaces for collections, imagining flexible spaces for community creation and collaboration within your libraries, whatever meets your specific library's needs in that. And then we also woven throughout talk about how do you find the right design team? How do you work with your community? How do you work with designers and construction specialists to get the job done? So really trying to tease apart those different topics during the facets of the workshop. So this one is an example of asking you and giving you prompts to consider reviewing during your library design project. And so these prompts are meant to provide jumping off points for you. So again, I'll mention that you don't have to answer every single question we give you, but what you can do is you can choose which questions, which prompts you might want to address to give you an opportunity to dig deeper into your own library design project with your work. And again, we'll be releasing these with additional resources throughout the duration of the course so that you'll come out with that roadmap when you're finished. That's an actionable item. It's a tangible product that you can then use with your staff, with your board, with your designers, or whomever you're going to be working with moving forward into the future.
Great.
So I think we also, at this point, we wanted to just take a pause and poll you to better understand what your own motivations are for joining us in this workshop or considering this workshop series. So the first question is, what is the motivating factor for your own design project? So why are you considering this? So you can take a couple minutes and type your answers in, and we'll talk through a little bit of that and see how our course might fit your needs. Space reconfiguration. I'll say that here at the University of Michigan Library, we have 4 major buildings, and they've all been built. They're across 3 different campuses, and they've all been built at different eras, and we have a lot of services that have changed over time. So we're really taking a close look at what our buildings can be reconfigured to do to support those services and those activities and changes. And you see not enough quiet or study space, not enough public meeting space. So that consideration of how do you design a building that suits a range of activities and needs. And I think one speaker that can really address that is Melanie Huggins, who will be our keynote speaker, and really engaging your community in that conversation so that you're not building out designs based on assumptions, but you're really making sure that they reflect your community, your staff, your board, and broader user needs as well. So the older buildings that are built in the 1950s, that's also a good example that we need to, not even just for accessibility issues, but we need to reconsider how buildings built for books are now being used for much more collaboration activities and spaces. So, and thinking about how to make the most effective use of your space as well. So you may not be looking at major renovations, but you may actually be looking at how can you use your existing footprint in a more thoughtful and useful way and reconfiguring that. So a lot of the aspects of what we'll cover, especially regarding organizational change or communication change or moving through design scenarios with your community, should help you think about that and think through that process. So let's move on to the second question. We have just 3 questions that we want to ask you. We'll get a little bit more into this. So what stage of this design process are you currently in? So planning, a little bit of folks who are in the midst of a project that's underway. So I think one aspect of the way that we've designed the coursework and the folks that we've identified as the speakers throughout the series are opportunities for you to think about how you can apply this to your own work, whether it is in that preparation process or whether it is in something that you're actually engaged in doing. And that's where we encourage you and invite you to customize this experience to your own project, customize the assignments to your own needs, and figure out what works for you so that you're going to get something that is actionable for you, useful for you and your team moving forward. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about planning, but any of these things I think can be applied to any stages of the design process in considering just the different facets of what the design process looks like, from communication, from that fundraising perspective, organizational change, to pedagogical design of your course, of your classroom, or I'm sorry, I'm thinking about classrooms right now for my own work, pedagogical design of your learning spaces and reconfiguration of your collection spaces as well. So this should be exciting for most of you. And then let's go on to the last poll question. So are you seeing changes in your collections or services? I think we touched a little bit on this in the first question that I saw answers coming through, that you need more or different kinds of configuration of spaces. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, more
it's like a lot of people.
Yeah, circulation declines or it changes. That's something to consider, is that even though we have digital collections, the ways that we engage in our collections are changing, and the types of collections we have are changing as well, and so that pushes back on the space that we have. So last question is, what's your biggest question right now that we can think about trying to address maybe more specifically with our facilitators or with the way that we finalize the homework assignments? Yes. So designer resources and product recommendations, we'll definitely be sharing a lot of different kinds of resources. We have a lot of both books, articles, websites, toolkits. We can have links to vendors that people have used or products that people have used. That's something that we've generated, but we also encourage you to provide as well if you've come across those things in your own planning process or your design process. And that's what's really exciting about being part of this community, is that we're all contributing to this together. How to get started. Yep.
There are a lot of great questions.
Mm-hmm. These are things that we will touch on. A fair amount of the time that we have allotted for our speakers in the live sessions will be around processes and around organizational change and around community engagement. Because we know those are big topics that are almost their own mini projects within this larger scale effort. So as I like to mention to a lot of folks that I work with, the space is only as valuable and as useful as it reflects the community need. So that community need, getting it right, getting those service models right, is really an important part of this process as well. So how to get architects to understand the library, that's another part of what we'll be engaging in. And so how do you find the right team and use the right team for the work that you need to get done specific to your library, because we know that there are a lot of unique factors that contribute to the decision-making process in a lot of these types of projects. So I'll just look through a little bit. Designing for flexible spaces, we'll talk about this as well. Oh, that's a great, our maker space is just a fad and a trend. We have Emily Thompson, who's going to be speaking to us from the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga, and she's actually been involved in designing what you might consider maker spaces from a community college perspective and a university college library perspective. And she has a lot of thoughts about this, and she has a really great deep perspective on what those spaces can actually be and how you think about them not just as inert spaces, but the programming behind them, the learning objectives and goals, or the community objectives and goals, and how you frame that in the context of tool provision and guidance and resource allocation. So how do we convince the city manager and council to move ahead? So that's an example of a question that you might dig into specifically around community engagement and fundraising. So if you have that specific question, see how you can think about addressing that across a lot of the assignments that we provide. So you might want to think about what are your biggest questions, and how do you frame the engagement of your work in this course to try to answer that question as robustly as possible, and how do you ask that out to your peers and your colleagues in the platform sessions, in the homework sessions, in between the live workshops. So this is really great. Thank you so much for contributing your questions, and think about this as just the launching off part of really forming this community of all of us who are participating in this that can help each other out through this process. So we'll dig in just a little bit into the speakers that we've identified for this series that we'll be bringing to you every couple of weeks. So the first two are, I mentioned both of them actually already, Melanie Huggins and Emily Thompson will be speaking to us on Wednesday, September 7th. I'll say from experience, they're both amazing speakers and they're very thoughtful about this approach. And one of the great opportunities you have with these live presentations is that you not only get to hear them speak, but you get to ask direct questions of them, and they're really interested in engaging with you and talking to you about how they address specific challenges that you might also be facing, or how they responded to great opportunities that you might be facing as well. So Melanie engaged in a really comprehensive strategic design process to renovate her libraries across the Richland library system. And that included a lot of work with communications folks and branding considerations, and really thinking about how they were communicating the story of the library to their community, and how they could use a building project to more deeply engage their community. So I think that will be a really interesting session to attend. And again, I just spoke about Emily Thompson. Her role as a studio librarian at the University of Tennessee. And she is very thoughtful about what it means to have these kind of active learning spaces, what it means to build community around them, and what are the real goals and objectives of these spaces, not just to put a bunch of 3D printers in them and let people come to them, but really what role do they serve in supporting their community needs. So she'll be great as well. So, oh, how many hours per week do you estimate the course will require of you? Well, so I think that depends on you and how much you want to engage in the course. So for example, we've got the live sessions where you can come and you can participate in those. You can just listen if you want to, and those are about, depending on how many speakers we have and what we're covering, they're about an hour and a half a week. And then the homework assignments are designed to be modular and flexible. So we give you, like I said, a lot of different prompts, and then we expect you to kind of use those prompts and hone that to the design challenge that is particular to you. And so you can spend a lot of time digging into that, or you can use it as a way to engage with this online community. So I would say that can be in addition to attending the sessions anywhere between about an hour of your time to maybe 3 hours of your time. Some people use the assignments to then have further discussions with their staff or with their designers. So they're actually taking these assignments and applying them into their design process as they move forward in their organization. So that would be a different level of time commitment. But then even popping in to the online classroom and popping into the sessions will give you that tidbit and that opportunity to grab some resources if you need them, to look at what other people are talking about, just to read through things. So your level of engagement may fluctuate over the duration of the course. It may fluctuate over the different topics and themes, and that is completely up to you. But we do encourage you to continue to contribute and participate in that classroom structure as much as it makes sense for you to do. So yeah, exactly what Carmen said. The more you put in, the more you'll get out of it. So is there any way to attend just one session? Is that even valuable? So what we'll have, if you're talking about the live sessions, we'll have those recorded and available within the classroom setting. So if you're not able to actually attend the live session, just like we're doing right now, we record all of them, and then you can watch through them at your leisure. So they'll be available for you for the duration of the course, as long as it's open, and a little bit afterwards. And so you can go back and you can review things, or you can highlight things and focus on that. And then you may be one of the people who just works through the assignments, for example, when we release them and talk about them. The goal of the live sessions is to provide real-life examples and points of inspiration that then you can tie back and translate back to your assignments. So these are thematically based, and they are designed to kind of give you some different perspective, give you an opportunity to connect with people who have been through this and they're on the other side of these things. But they're not always specifically, absolutely directly tied to the assignment. So we're not going to ask, but what did Melanie say regarding X, Y, and Z topic in her homework assignment, in your homework assignment. So
Joseph was wondering if the recorded sessions include the chat and Q&A.
I believe so. Is that right, Carmen? Yes, that's what I thought. So you can go back through and you can see what other people ask questions of. You can see what we responded to. And then you can also use that as a way to connect with those people within the classroom structure too. So if you want to reach out to folks, you can do that as well. And again, that's one of the best things about this is hearing from each other about the projects you're working on and giving each other advice. So, so we'll move on to week 2. I'll just go over that a little bit.
There you go.
We'll try to make sure we're covering some of your other questions. If you didn't get them answered, you can pop them in, keep popping them in, and we'll try to address them. So week 2 is really exciting. I had the pleasure of working with both Lee and Elliot to organize a conference in Michigan last summer at Lee's library at the Mary Adema Pugh Library and Learning Commons at Grand Valley State University. And she is so engaging and so thoughtful about how they have really worked hard to, they've built a new building and they really worked hard to transform the library experience. And one of the things that she said that she sees now out of their smaller liberal arts library is that you can see what learning looks like. You can see what scholarship looks like now because of the way that people engage with their spaces. And they have taken a very peer approach to learning in their spaces, which I think can be translated to both public libraries and to academic library settings. And then Elliot is the founder of Brightspot Strategy, and that is a really interesting consulting group that works with a lot of libraries across the country to not just rethink space, but also think about how services align with space and how organizational structures and the organizational culture affects space. So he has a lot of deep insight into the people side of designing spaces for a lot of different kinds of uses. And so what do you consider with that? How do you consider about getting your board on board with these things? What do you consider about how the spaces might need to change to reflect service points, or service points might change in response to spaces, and how that affects how staff are engaged and how they're trained and that kind of thing. So I think that is another aspect that you'll get some really interesting specific examples of the process behind some of these design projects and how you can think about that, some of that squishy people stuff. So, so I'll pause for a minute and look through and see if we have any questions to answer.
A good one from Susan.
Yeah, so Susan, you say we don't have money for space planners or consultants. Oh, absolutely. Will this course help it do ourselves? Yes, I think so. So what you can consider getting out of this course is how you can build within your library a community of kind of mini experts at this. So what are the resources you want to take away from this to translate back to your team in thinking about how you can rethink your space with existing furniture, how you can think about new layouts, how you can think about small changes like maybe even just paint or lighting or things like that. And think about how you can build capacity. So what are the elements of expertise that you can bring back to your library team that external planner might not or might otherwise provide if you have the funding for that, but that you can kind of build into your team. And that's actually something to potentially ask Elliot in when he speaks, because he really believes in the whole train the trainer concept. So they apply a very user-focused technique to the work that they do, and they actually train the staff and they train the participants that are engaged with him to be able to do these things themselves, because that way you can carry it on into the future. So think about how you can take these resources, think about how you can take these principles that we're discussing through these design projects and then build that capacity and expertise within your own community. And that's actually one of my roles here at the library is to make sure that we're all co-creating together and that we are all become kind of mini experts in these things so that we are all participating in this. It's not just given to the space designer to make the decisions, but we're also active participants because we're experts as librarians and as planners in our own domains and our own spaces. So I think you will be able to get a lot out of that. So, all right. So week 3 is Leslie. She has a ton of experience in library development, so in thinking about fundraising strategies, and this is where you can really dig in and ask some specific questions that might relate to your specific community context. I know lots of public libraries have different funding configurations, different kinds of relationships with their community members, then their donor, their board, for example. Maybe you need to develop and think about cultivating donors over time. And she has worked with a lot of different libraries to help them develop those strategies. So that's what she's going to be engaging with you with in the live session, is that overview of what do you need to consider in these different fundraising scenarios. How do you build up those relationships and how do you maintain those relationships over time, not just for those one-time money requests, but it's also communicating the importance of a renovation or a space enhancement or a new building to your broader economic base or administrative base so that they understand that you're not just trying to refresh an older building just for the sake of refreshing it, but it actually will be a transformative opportunity for your community and to continue to serve them. So I would say if you're able to view the previous sessions, think about what Lee talks about in working with her community, think about what Elliot talked about in thinking about organizational culture, and then you can bring some of those questions to Leslie when she speaks. And again, I think Carmen may have mentioned this, we'll have the recordings and we'll have these materials, the slides materials and things from presenters so that you can go back through and look at them a little bit more deeply if you want to hone in on a specific aspect of what they covered during the session. So move on. So week 4 is going to be really exciting. This is one where we will be looking at considerations of building new buildings or renovating buildings and thinking about what that looks like in your community with a really big project, and what are the elements that you consider in terms of sustainability or in terms of figuring out how to really transform an existing space or create something completely new. And Monique is someone that I think will be very inspiring. She was one of the winners of the new Landmark Library Series for public libraries for their library and community center in Palo Alto. And it's an amazing example of how a library really thought about a public library thought about its place in its community and how it could not only serve its community as a library, but how it could really boost the overall kind of cultural health of a community, the outdoor health of a community, in really partnering with their community center to create a new integrated structure where they're able to utilize this building to its fullest capacity and boost each other's missions and really do some things that I think otherwise they wouldn't have been able to do on their own. And it's a very strong example of a very creative, sustainable building that's really thinking to give back to the community. And then Teresa also has a lot of that experience through looking at the University of Denver and the work that they've engaged in over time to pull out some different kinds of spaces and work. So I think this will give you a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the specifics involved in and the physical infrastructure involved in considering how to move forward in your own design process. So Beth, I'll take a moment to look at your point here. Small government library. Mm-hmm. Yep. So the question you ask is, do you think it would be a good space to explore design needs, even though we're a little bit different in size and target than many public libraries, academic libraries, and services? Yes. yeah, and we'll start wrapping up everything. But yes, we've had folks who have participated in this workshop in the past that were corporate libraries, so they were embedded in corporate research centers. So they had a very different population that they were considering serving. We've had folks that are from overseas that are engaged in not only thinking about their own library redesign, but their whole entire the higher education system within which they work is being renovated as well, and they have a very specific focus to their population and very different needs than what you might generally expect. So that's another opportunity for you to pull pieces of this, of the homework and of the structure and customize it to your own experience and think about what you can take away from the speakers. But all of those participants were able to work with their facilitators one-on-one to get specific feedback and work with their smaller group to get specific feedback that would be targeted and tailored for your needs and not so generalized. Due dates are generally about, I think, a week after the assignment. So what you need is to provide the assignment in a timely manner for your facilitator to be able to read them and give you thoughtful feedback and post that back into the threaded discussion, and then you can continue that conversation. So we do try to keep you, if you're going to participate in the assignments, keep you to that so that you're enabling your facilitator to participate and give you that feedback that they need to. Yep, and we've built in this time especially, we've built in a little bit of extra time for people to get their assignments done. I think we'll move on to the next slide and we'll get Carmen and some other folks to answer some of the certificate questions. So broadly, so Sonia, there are going to generally be 4 assignments, but they may be split into part 1 and part 2. And they have, again, like I said, they're built to be customizable and modular so that you will look at that assignment and you will respond to what makes sense for you. And the weeks generally correspond to broad themes that we're covering, and the speakers are meant to serve as inspiration points that address some of those themes. So they're not super, super tied together, but it's an array of support for you. So in looking at this, this is what the online classroom experience looks like, what I've been talking about before. You've got discussion boards where we might post a specific prompt for you to consider and engage in. Those discussion boards are both for all of the learning community, and also you can have specific discussions within your own learning pod, essentially. We have that thread where you'll post your homework, and again, I encourage you, if you participate in that, to do a copy and paste so your other classmates can see the work that you're doing and they can give you feedback in addition to the feedback you're receiving from your facilitator. So the facilitator goes through and reads carefully all of your assignments and asks you follow-up questions, gives you additional resources, gives you tips on strengthening facets of your assignment and things like that as you move forward to build that roadmap from the assignments that we're providing to you. And again, when I talk about those smaller groups, that's what you get with the facilitator that is able also to see all of the assignments in your group and make connections across assignments and make recommendations across assignments as well. And they may connect you with each other to work on something or to discuss a certain topic or share certain resources, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of activity that happens in those small group mentoring sessions. And again, I mentioned we have a big list of resources developed from our previous experience and from our own expertise, but this is a place where additional resources get shared across groups based on your own experience, your work, and what you've done. And then this is an opportunity to really build a professional network of people that as the course ends, you can continue that relationship on with them. And we actually have set up with EdMaker a commons where alumni from these courses can continue to connect with each other outside of the course structure, so you can continue to ask questions, to share experiences, share examples with each other. And I don't know, Caitlin, if you want to talk to that at all, since you're a facilitator of that.
Yeah, the Commons is a great area to get answers and resources from other librarians, and posting on the discussion board is a great way to connect with other librarians, and it helps librarians who may have the same questions and concerns and experiences that they're going through to get answers on. So yeah, there are a lot of resources and postings from, we'll post recordings from previous workshops so that you're getting a lot of information and have a lot to discuss.
Yeah, it's a nice way to continue this and to deepen those relationships that you've built over time and recognize that there are people all across the country and all across the world that are engaged in addressing similar questions that you might have toward the design process or similar activities, even though they may be in their own unique community context. And again, Carmen answered Karen's question about the homework. Again, this is something where we've seen people work on it as individuals. We've seen people take this to a team of folks that they're already working with. We've seen people use this as a mechanism by which to have conversations with their trustees. So you are not limited to just doing it yourself as an individual, but we encourage you actually to use these as prompts by which to move your own design project forward. So if you want to go back and look at the speakers that we've got lined up, if you want to look at the course structure and the outcomes that we're looking to provide to you, you can visit this website. You can also contact the folks at edmaker.co who have been the ones that have kind of provided the structure around all of this. Carmen's involved on that team, Caitlin's involved on that team, and a lot of really great people. And if you have technical questions, you can also ask them about how the actual online platform works. But we really look forward to working with you if you choose to sign up, and I look forward to engaging with you and digging into some of these issues and sharing my own experiences as a space design assessment librarian and as somebody who's worked with Library Journal on looking across the national landscape of different library projects from both academic and public settings, and sharing some of that with you as well.
Great. Well, like Emily said, if you do have any questions, any more questions, just email learn@edmaker.co and we'll get back to you. Thanks, Emily. This was so informative. I really enjoyed your presentation. It was great.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone for joining us today on this lovely Thursday.